happy to be here tonight and to be with you. It's an honor, and to be with you all in this really amazing space. I'm always struck when I come to Brooklyn, because I know that I'm minutes away from so many diverse communities. So here, I know that I'm minutes away from the Hasidic Jews of Williamsburg and the Middle Eastern community of Atlantic Avenue, and lots of churches, Italian, Catholic communities, Protestant. And I've always thought that Americans have a love affair with the idea of a multicultural society, with the idea of creating this sort of ideal, diverse, multicultural place. But in my mind, and that's why I'm here tonight, I guess, in my mind, an almost pure ideal of a multicultural society was Cairo, in the sense, once upon a time, in the sense that you had Jews and Muslims and Christians coexisting together with a degree of harmony that I think many Americans would find almost hard to imagine in this post 9/11 universe that we live in. And it was really not my Egypt so much, but it was my parents' Cairo, my parents' Egypt that really, to I think an extraordinary degree, achieved that ideal. Once upon a time, for those of you who may not know this, there were 80,000 Jews who lived in Egypt, and over 1 million Europeans, so that there were the French and the Brits, of course, but also Belgians and Swiss and Greeks and Italians and Armenians. It was an unbelievably cosmopolitan society, a place of outdoor cafes where you could sit and hear several languages being spoken in the same breath, and sometimes even in the same sentence. And it was also, especially Cairo, a city where I'm told life never began before the stroke of midnight. And you may ask why, and apparently it was because no self-respecting belly dancer would begin her act before the clock struck 12. But again, without always worrying about idealizing it too much, it was a society where you had Jews and Christians and Muslims living with this amazing degree of harmony, in the sense that they went to school together, and they worked together, and they socialized together, and come the end of the week, they would go to their various houses of worship, the synagogues and mosques and churches that were everywhere. So what's happened to the 80,000 Jews of Egypt and the 1 million Europeans? Well, in the 2 years since Sharkskin came out, first in hardcover and then last summer in paperback, I have come to feel that they're all trying to find me, and they're all trying to email me. It has been an incredible period, so I thought I'd take a few minutes to talk about first the sort of my world since Sharkskin came out, and then talk about the book itself. When the week that my book was published, my newspaper, the Wall Street Journal, gave me an incredible gift in that they excerpted a piece of it on the front page, and under a kind of an essay titled "Searching for My Father's Lost City." And I'll never forget waking up that morning, and my email inbox was sort of jammed with mail, and what was striking about it is where the emails were from. The first was from the Isle of Wight. A Coptic Christian had written to tell me, he too was from Cairo, and hadn't gone back until this year, and his house, which he tried to visit, was now the Ministry of the Interior, so he wasn't even allowed to photograph it. But the other mail was from. There were notes from London and Geneva and Lausanne and Paris and Sydney and Adelaide and Toronto, Montreal, Rio, a professor from Harvard, a professor from Rutgers, and closer to home from Brooklyn and from Queens. And the letters were all different. They were all from different people, and they've continued to this day. Not a week goes by. Usually, I'd say every couple of days, I will get some letter from some reader somewhere. But they were different, but they all had a sort of similar and have a similar poignancy, because they all speak of this lost world that doesn't really exist anymore. Though I keep looking for it. I was in Cairo last month actually, and I feel like I'm always looking for my father's city, as perhaps you are in some ways, or you tried to when you went back to Libya. But one woman from Philadelphia phrased it very well. She said, quote, "We never had a chance to say goodbye," unquote, referring to these very rushed departures. The 80,000 Jews of Egypt, and I think many in the European community, left in a period of 19 years from the creation of the State of Israel in 48, basically, to the mid-1960s, the 67 war. That was when the bulk of them left, and my family left in 63. The most haunting email, the only one I'll sort of tell you about in any detail, came from a man also in Philadelphia who recalled how his father had taken the family from Cairo to the Alsace-Lorraine region of France after Egypt. And this poor guy recalled how his father hated the Alsace-Lorraine. He wrote me in this email, he cursed it. He said he cursed the cold and the coldness of the people. And I hope nobody hears from there. And then he said that his father would always say, "Never bury me in the Alsace-Lorraine." And so and the guy ended his note to me saying, "Both my parents are buried there. Both my parents are buried in the Alsace-Lorraine." And this note was bothering me and continues to bother me. And I finally told a friend about it, and he said, "I know why. It's because your history, that's what was buried. That's what sort of nobody knows. Nobody, that's what people have forgotten." I know that as I told you, when my editors decided to excerpt my book, my editors were among some of the most knowledgeable, educated people in the world, and yet, the news that, the Jews left Egypt, 50, 60 years ago was considered like a hot scoop, a stop the press. So they put it on the front page, and that's how little. And I've since lectured, maybe I've given a couple of hundred talks, and I'm always amazed by how little people know. When I think about this Cairo of mine, and I suspect a very different Cairo than the one that Neil has known, except go more on that a bit later. But I think of these old black and white movies that I watched on TV as a little girl in America on our first TV set, black and white. And I don't know why, but I was always enthralled with these science fiction films about the lost island of Atlantis. And you would see this beautiful city sort of surrounded by mist and water. And that's the way I think of Cairo. And in a way, the most striking note that I've ever received to this day, or maybe the most important, arrived physically by mail. It was from a retired Egyptian diplomat who had read my book and very closely identified with it, though he was not Jewish. And he apologized for what had been done to the Jews of Egypt. And to the best of my knowledge, that's, I think, the only apology we've ever gotten. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the sort of themes that motivated me the most, and also how I got my title. This book really began, I think, more than a dozen years ago. It began the week that my father died, and I went